Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm your host, Noor Kyle.
And I am her faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
As always, thank you, Mushtaq. And thank you to all of you who are here live on Zoom with us, and to those of you as well who are watching the recording on YouTube. Thank you for being with us, whether it's your first time or your 50th time. We've been at this for a few years now, and you guys are like friends and family. So we really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you for your support. And
And
hopefully,
speaking of support,
yes.
we would be incredibly grateful um, if you would consider hitting the like button as you watch this. It's a very small thing for you guys, but it is a very big thing for us in our war against the YouTube algorithm. So we would appreciate that. And so like our video. We'll talk nice to you about you to God and subscribe to our channel. No reason other than there will be a prize this week for somebody who subscribes to our channel. We don't know what it is. You don't know what it is. God has not told us what it is, but I guarantee you that there will be a prize for one or more of you who subscribe. And the third thing is comment. We love your comments. And again, your comments get all sorts of engagement with the algorithm, and the algorithm gets all fluffy and it likes us. So drop a comment.
Yep.
And you can support us. And how you can do that, you can find in the description at the end of the video, except for you guys who are here and you already know all of that. So I ain't going to go through it.
Yeah.
But send us all your money. We'll be happy. You'll be happy.
And you'll find links to our Facebook group and our Instagram and all of that stuff in the description. I like to throw in there that there are t-shirts, should you so desire.
Yeah, and there's going to be more t-shirts soon.
Yeah, Mushnock's been working on some stuff.
You need to stop talking because every time
I
I get
know,
wait,
I know.
wait. Damn it, you did it again. I'm trying to make you a co-host, and every time I try and click on you, you've moved. So let's see. There we go. Confirm. And you're the co-host.
All right.
So that's our thing. We are very happy to be here tonight. I'm particularly happy because we're going to talk about something that I really love. And this is your chance to turn things around, Noor. Yeah.
Yes.
So we are going to discuss Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi, not from the point of view of his poetry, which is admittedly exquisite. We love his poetry. We love um, everything that he's written. But, you know, there is more than just poetry to him. So, in case anybody doesn't know who Rumi was, let me give you a brief bio. I cribbed this from the interwebs just so I'd have something to tell you about. He was born in 1207 and died in 1273. Um, he's known as Mevlana or Maulana, which means our master, and mostly we call him Rumi. He was born in Balkh, which was in Greater Khorasan, uh, and right now that is at the edge of Afghanistan and Tajikistan. He migrated west with his family when he was a kid because the Mongols were coming in to the area and they actually destroyed Balkh and slaughtered all of the people who were living there. But by that time, he and his family had already moved to Konya, which is in the Seljuk Sultanate. That's where he gets his Rumi from, Rumi comes from Rum, which is the way they said Rome, because at that time they had just snatched it from the Eastern Roman Empire. Um, he was trained under his father, Bahauddin Walid, and then by the disciple Burhan al-Din. He was a very well educated and respected scholar in of jurisprudence and a preacher, an imam, until one day he met a wandering dervish named Shamsuddin al-Tabrizi. And that meeting transformed Rumi. We don't need to go into all the details of it, but um, the two of them completed each other. They brought each other to the final state, you say, to the baqa, to the subsistence in God. He wrote a couple of books, the Masnavi, which is a huge um, epic is full of poems and stories and all of this wonderful stuff. Um, and he wrote the Divani Shamsi Tabriz, which is his lyric poetry. The prose discourses that he wrote, the Fihi Mafihi, uh, and that means in it, what's in it? It is what it is. That consists of 70 of his sohbets that his students wrote down and then were collected up after Rumi's death and shared around in the Mevlevi Tariqa for centuries. And in the late 19th, early 20th century, started getting translated into other languages. Uh,
So these would have been like his group teachings that he
yeah,
taught to his
much like this,
students. Yeah.
only more beautifully spoken. He also had Majlisi Sab, which Sabah, which is the seven sermons, which were his sermons, and a group of his letters, 115, I think, letters that he sent to different people. But the heart of his actual teachings were found in the Fihi Mafihi. It grew out of um, his talks very much like this one, where he would pick a subject and talk about it and then discuss it with his students. And um, it's profound. There's been a couple of translations of this now. The one that I use and still like is the Arbery translation, uh, which was done early in the 20th century. And do you have that pulled up, Noor? You can give them the dates and such things.
I do. Yes. Okay. So, um, for which the Fihi Mafihi?
Yeah.
That was, yeah, this was like 13th century Konya, and his students kept notes. And after his death in
Yeah, I'm
1273,
I'm not talking about that part. I'm talking about the modern publication.
oh, the modern publications. Got it, got it, got it. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so that was, you mentioned Arbery, so that was like a mid 20th century translation. It's not the entirety of it, it's a portion of it, but it's a meaningful translation. And there have been later ones like Thaxton's Signs of the Unseen.
Yeah, Arbery's translation. How many discourses does it have? Well, it's pretty close to all of them because it has 71 discourses in it.
Hmm.
And they will count this either as 70 or 71 because the 71st is very short.
Yeah.
But that's what we got. And I've been reading this book for 40 years and I barely understand some of it.
But that's the case with a lot of these deep works, is
Yeah.
that it takes, it took them a lifetime to get to the point where they could write it. It takes us a lifetime to get to the point where we can, to some extent, understand what they were trying to say and to feel the truth they were aiming to express within ourselves in a true way, as opposed to just a reading the words and letting the words be absorbed sort of way. And many of you who have been listening to our talks over the last 3 weeks or so, we've been discussing Ibn Arabi. So you're familiar with that sense of, the digestion process that goes into receiving work of such depth as works like Ibn Arabi's or Rumi's and others, and digesting our way through.
And RM notes that she found a PDF of 451 pages. That sounds about right if it was the one that was translated by Arbery.
Yes, this is the one I just opened it up. Um,
Yep, that's the one.
so you do a search for that, and you guys should be able to find a PDF of Discourses of Rumi translated by A.J. Arbery.
Who was a student of Nicholson, who was considered the best Arab and Persian translator from England in his time. It was a little bit dry, but what do you do?
Academics,
Academics, yeah. But he was accurate, and that's the nice thing.
yes, which is something that is challenging to say these days because of a lot of the folks who have been translating Rumi's works into English have been doing interpretations rather
Yeah.
than.
They aren't doing translations. They're looking at either Arbery's or Nicholson's translation and they're rewriting it to make it sound prettier. Because I'm sorry, but most of these guys do not speak Farsi. They don't speak Arabic. Maybe they have somebody who does working with them, but most of the time not.
Mm,
And so things are lost in translation because they aren't Sufis, they aren't dervishes. And if you're not, I think even if you are, it's hard to understand Rumi.
mhm. But there's an experiential quality required to fully understand, in my opinion.
That's right. So what we did was, so this is like a feast of knowledge in this book. And what we did is to take a small sampler of this knowledge, very small sampler, like three of his discourses that we consider pivotal in many ways. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Uh, some of Rumi's core ideas. And the first one I picked out just because it's going to piss people off. So,
Classic.
yeah, Rumi respects forms. And you have to understand, people talk about Rumi and they see the universalist aspect of what he says. And they go, oh, he means that we don't have to be Muslims. And he probably wouldn't care if you were a Muslim or not, but he was. He was a practicing devout Muslim for his entire life. And if you don't like that, you can get over yourself because that is the hard and fast truth, excuse me,
Truth.
truth. So he had an important view on this, though. The form to him was just the doorway. The problem when we move in and mistake the doorway for the house. He teases the expert who recites the form of the Quran correctly, but has no knowledge of its meaning. And if you think that that isn't the case, let me tell you, when I was living in Tanzania, I would go to madrasas that were paid for by the Saudis for the most part. And you would have all of these kids, and they were sitting around reciting Quran. Not one of them spoke Arabic. Nobody bothered to teach them what they were saying. They were just making noises so that they would get some food and not get hit with a stick.
Chanting sounds.
Yeah. And if you ask them, what was it that you just said? They would look at you like you were crazy. They had no idea. And that is an example of form over substance. And that is taking the poetry of the Quran and turning it into noise, in my humble opinion, or my not so humble opinion, in my blatantly arrogant opinion. How's that?
So we have a right in the chat. Anissa says even Arab speaking countries don't know what they're reading for the most part.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. The first time I went to a purely Arab mosque, it was like everybody around me was in a race to see who could get through whatever surahs they were reciting the fastest.
I see Osama laughing. Yeah.
So, so Rumi mentions the expert who recites the form of the Quran correctly but has no knowledge of its meaning. And his viewpoint was the outer is the front piece of the inner. In modern terms, nice front page. Did you read the article? That's what we would say today.
Read beyond the headline, right?
Yep.
Osama, you have a thought, question?
Yeah, thought and comment. I was reading the the treaties or letters of the Brothers of Purity, Ikhwan al-Safa, who they were this group from
North
10th,
Africa. They were
the
from
10th
the Maghreb.
century or something like that. Um, they were out of Iraq, actually.
Were they?
Yeah,
Yeah, I first
and
ran across them, mentioned to them in, I think, Morocco. But
they're interesting. They're
yeah, they're very interesting.
interesting people, and it's they're um, one of the early texts of Sufism and not even Sufism actually. They don't even prescribe to that language. Um, but I was reading a part yesterday, a section that was pretty much talking about what Rumi's talking about here. This out uh, outward. form and the inner reality of things, and how each thing has its own people. And there's a paragraph that I highlighted that I would like to read um, from their book, and I think it probably will go with what we're talking about here. They said that the Sharia, the religious law, is the medicine for the sick, which is right off the bat is a
Yeah.
it's a statement, right? So they're saying the religious law, the Sharia, is the medicine for the sick, while philosophy or inner reality contemplation is the medicine for the healthy. The prophets tend to the sick so that their illness does not worsen and so that it may be removed, leading only to recovery. As for the philosophers, they preserve health for those who already have it, so that no illness overtakes them at all. There is thus a clear and evident difference between the care of the sick and the care of the healthy. For the goal of tending to the sick is to bring them to health, while the goal for tending to the healthy is to maintain their health. So even at that time, obviously, and they, I mean, yeah, they were before the time of Rumi. Um, yeah, these talks about the outer form and the inner realities and how each has its own um, circle, one for the public and one for the uh, elected or whatever, as the Sufis say, or um, but I think it's fascinating, and obviously here Rumi is talking about not being able to separate form from the inner itself, right? How
Yeah.
yeah,
The form is what gets you to the essence in his point of view. And his idea of once you have the essence, you don't need the form, but he doesn't say leave the form because the form becomes practice at that point. And we all need all the practice we can get.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, this goes to the idea of rituals and practices in that way, and how to form connections, how to form deeper connection with oneself during these rituals also, right?
Yeah.
And with the divine. So
Yeah.
That's the
The outer
idea.
form, when you are dealing with sixth century Arabs, especially the sixth century Arabs of Mecca, we have to realize that they were not nice people. They just weren't. And Islam gave them the remedy for their assholiness.
Yeah.
I mean that's one way to look at it. But in reality, most of it actually, and now even more and more stuff start to come out from that region as far as the kind of civilization that was there pre-Islam, which was actually very huge, and
Yeah,
those
that's
there,
why I specifically mentioned Mecca.
yeah, um, yeah, but there's also this, well, this might be a tangent, maybe it's for another thing, but that Muhammad was really in his all his efforts, he was specifically talking to the Christians and the Jews and the people of Mecca, and um, the pagans were also part of that discussion, but mainly it's the people of the book that he was really interested in having a discussion with.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I mean he sent letters to all sorts of interesting people, including the uh, high muckety muck of Constantinople.
Right.
I forget what his title was at the time, inviting him to come to Islam. He did all of that. And the day-to-day stuff that is in the Quran was definitely designed to create a civilized society where people were not mistreated, where slavery was no longer an issue. He just had a different way of working to get rid of slavery than, say, we did here during the Civil War. His thing was, oh, you've made a terrible sin. So you can repent by fasting for 3 months, or you can repent by giving all of your wealth to the poor, or you can free a slave. I mean, it literally reads like that. It tells you you can do all of these really inconvenient things or free a slave. I appreciate the sneakiness of that. But we digress.
Yes. Thank you, Osama.
Yeah,
And
I love that kind of digression.
yeah, good stuff. Good resource for us to follow up on. Thank you for that. All right.
So Rumi said, the world is a mere foam fleck of the true sea, a false coin that sparkles to the eye. The spring breeze you can't see, the spring breeze, you can't see the breeze, but you see its dance in the trees and the roses, subtle qualities revealed through a medium. So he uses these as an illustration, and there's a parable that he tells about. A king tests his scholar son with a hidden object. The boy nails every attribute but misses the essence. And the hidden object was a gold ring. So the king says, tell me about this ring. And the son, marked upon its color and its luster and its softness and all of these different things. And Rumi said, cast the ring into the fire, it becomes its essential self, purified of all appearances. And that's a theme that we see over and over again. And the idea for this is, why do I clutch the front piece, the cover of the book, and avoid opening the book? What ring of my image, my status, my correctness needs the fire? Does that make sense? Because this is one of his most profound teachings. Form versus essence.
Can you repeat the last line one more time, please?
Yeah, let me pull it up in my notes here. Where do I clutch the cover and avoid opening the book? What ring of my image, my status, my correctness needs the fire? What do you need to do to see the essence of the thing? Say, for instance, you're angry about something. If you toss that anger in the fire and melt it down to its essence, what do you actually find? And this is where uh, we forget about Rumi, the ecstatic poet, and discover Rumi, who insists that you do the work.
So that says to me is there's always a place for the ecstatic, right?
Yeah,
And yet, That does not negate the fact that
You got to do the work.
you've got to have real skin in the game
Yeah.
somehow.
Rumi's question is, if the outer if the outer is a sign of the inner, what exactly is the real? And we're going to get into the real a little bit more next. And what is just our dream of the real? So Rumi is a very kind and loving individual, but he is absolutely ruthless with people's illusions. Um, and this is the second theme that I took out of the Fihi Fihi, which is the real versus the imagined world. He says straight out, this world is a dream of a sleeper. Where have we heard this before? You are asleep and you are dreaming. And uh, you need to wake up. He illustrates how we know this, but keep forgetting. And you'll notice this as a theme throughout this book is the heedlessness, the forgetting that we have talked about with Ibn Arabi.
Yeah, the heedlessness, that was a key word for
Yeah.
those talks.
He says that this life is like waking from a sad dream and then falling back to sleep to care about the dream again.
Mm.
Have you ever done that? That's a weird thing. You have a weird dream and you wake up and go, "Oh, that was just a dream," and you fall back asleep and there you are in the dream again and you forgot that it's a dream. Anybody here done that?
I've certainly done that. Yep, many of us have.
He also, in the book, shows how we chase 100 things that are really one root hunger.
Mm.
He calls it the many things of this world are the trial. They hide the single reality. Does that make sense to you? The many things of this world are the trial, and they
So,
hide the single reality.
yeah, it's like, well, the first thing that comes to me is like the multi, the multiplicity of distractions, right? And all of these things that we get caught up in, like we're we've got to have all of these things to feel satisfied and safe and comfortable that we hunger for, in other words. Yes, even goals, says RM.
Sometimes, especially goals.
Mm. The perfect relationship, the smartest, beautiful, most behaved children, the
All the money in the world.
sparkling home, yeah. Great wealth, shiny objects. Yes. Mert asks a good question. Well, RM says been there many times, so this is relatable for just about all of us, I imagine. RM's Mert says, if reality is single, how can anything hide it?
It's very simple. Mert, close your eyes. Think about anything. Think about what you're planning on eating later today. Think about somebody who made you angry. Think about something that somebody said to you when you were 10 years old on a schoolyard that hurt your feelings. Every single one of those is a veil to the truth. Even closing your eyes is a veil to the truth. Does that make any sense to you?
It makes sense
Or,
because my eyelids close and it becomes a veil.
yeah, yeah, every thought can be a veil. So the trick is to open your eyes and let go of the thoughts and experience the real, which is hard because we're surrounded by 10 million veils. And Rumi thinks that veils are a necessity.
Yeah, this is where we flip the script a little bit, huh?
Yeah. Rumi has a lot of fun talking about plan makers. We scheme. God has other ideas. So there's a story about Ibrahim ibn Adam where he wants to catch a deer, but God caught him by means of the deer. And we don't have time to really go into the story, but look it up. It's a fun story.
So that's Abraham, son of Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rumi would say, you look at your calendar and your calendar says, this Tuesday, become enlightened. But you flip over to God's calendar and his calendar says, Tuesday, have a flat tire. Get caught in traffic, in the rain. And enlightenment is out the window. So,
Or right at the tip of that moment of changing the tire in the middle of the rain, stuck in traffic, right?
yeah, that's it. And at every moment you have a choice of letting that stuff go or being upset about it. And if you let the upset go and you just change the tire in the rain and remember God while you're doing it, it's better for you. Not saying you'll be enlightened, but you will be less endarkened.
Okay. Yeah. So RM asks a relevant question. Can we discuss how veils are necessary?
Yes, we're going to get that. We're going to
Mm,
get to that in mere moments.
all right. And Anissa asks, we won't be able to recognize the real if there weren't any veils.
If there weren't any veils, you would be blinded by the light.
Well, there would be, I guess we're gonna get into it, but
Yeah, we're going to get into
we're
it.
gonna get into it. Yes.
Ya sabur, ya sabur, ya sabur.
Yeah. Yep. RM says, love the word, the word, the phrase less darkened. It seems more doable.
Yeah. You got to figure if there is enlightenment, there is endarkenment.
Mm, yep.
And at every moment, we have a direction of which way we go.
All right, onward.
So, Rumi uses the metaphor of the heart as a mirror and the heart as an astrolabe. An astrolabe is a really wonderful Arab invention that was used to navigate by means of the sun and stars. And before we had modern navigation, that's how people got across huge bodies of water without getting lost and dying. And they're very cool. Um, and one of his most favorite metaphors is this. People are the astrolabe of God. Just as a copper astrolabe reflects the movements of the heavens, so the human being is the astrolabe of God. Not everybody can use an astrolabe though. It takes an astronomer, a trained heart. He extends the mirror image, the wise, behold moment by moment an infinite beauty that never leaves their mirror. Uh,
So tracking.
yeah.
Mm.
So Rumi flips our obsession with reputations and trinkets. He says, the Amir is like a mirror with precious pearls on its back. Those who love gold look at the back. Those who love life look in the mirror. And he asks, how do we polish the mirror? And this is where he gets into seek the living meaning, not the recited form. Let veils help. This is where we get into the veils. But don't mistake the veil for the face. Light shines through the eyes and ears, but it's the sun that shines, not our little lamp. Which is something I want you to think about. The lights that are going on in your room now, the energy from that light doesn't come from the power station. It comes from the sun. If you follow it back far enough, if you have a coal-fired power plant, that coal was once huge amounts of trees and greenery that was fed by the sun and stored the energy of that light. So whatever light you see, its source is the one light. So if you see somebody and think, wow, they're a really saintly person, you can get lost. If you realize that maybe some of the one light is shining through them, you'll probably be okay. Does that make sense? And now we get to the veils.
Uh,
This
yes,
is
so
the
Osama
ever,
says, and we see it because it needs reflection, the
yes,
light of the one, of the truth, of the real. Otherwise, we just get what, like literally and metaphorically blasted to oblivion.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Rumi anticipates that our boredom is going to be an objection. Wouldn't seeing God get old after a
Mm.
while? And the philosophers say yes. Theologians say only if God were a single colored. Rumi's line is he comes forth in 100 colors every instant. Every day he is like he is upon a task. No one, not one moment would resemble another. The displays vary with the seasons, joy, fear, hope, and the essence can't be exhausted. He warns us not to mistake the reflected rays for the sun. It behooves us to become the sun. When the sun sinks, the light disappears too.
Mm. That last bit, that's interesting.
Rumi says, proceed from the Quran to God, not the other way around. What do you think that means?
Mert.
Perhaps it can mean go from one little piece to the whole, not
Yes.
from the top down, from down to top. Because if you go from top down, your top may be dirty.
Yeah, it's like in Indian yoga, they say, never try to open up your energy from the top down because it will always lead you astray. Start from the bottom up, start from the foundations.
And we can also think of yeah, I mean, you've given an example of uh in the context of yoga, right?
Yeah,
And we don't have to think of this as literal Quran. We can think of this as any resource in which we're looking for a textbook, a guidebook, something to get us started on, inner work on a path, however we want to frame this, understanding that it's going to have inbuilt limitations. It is the doorway. And just as Mushtaq was saying previously, the challenge for many of us is not to mistake the doorway for what lies beyond it.
yes. The dining hall.
The buffet, the grand buffet. Yeah.
So,
Yes. RM says Quran is like the rope to God. Yes. And Osama was talking about a little bit of what we're getting at earlier too. Osama, yes.
Yeah, the as you read that, what Rumi said, the first thing that I felt was I don't think I agreed with it. Uh, Something about it seemed first impression that it should be the other way around. The beloved and then the Quran. Um, and then because I try to relate it to my experience. And I guess it depends on where the individual is at,
Mm.
right? Like in what part of their path they're on, because there are moments where actually it's very hard to talk about this. Like there are moments where, yeah, I remember reading a book and it's like not even being able to question the book. And then a moment after that, it's like, wait a second. I don't know if this is all written by the divine. This one line right here does not make sense. Wait a second. Let me question it. Let me create that space in order to um allow for my experience to emerge, for it to be truly my own rather than a programming or whatnot. And then after that space and having some kind of experience, then coming back to the text with a whole different kind of understanding or maybe even attitude towards it. But to take that statement and have it as face value to be applicable at all times and for it to be true in every situation, I don't necessarily know if I agree with that.
Have you considered that you are trying to take it out of the context of the lifetime of the person?
Who, the speaker or who he's
You.
talking to?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, you. If you look at this and if you look at that statement and go, I don't know if I agree with that. Look at any given person and look at the entire flow of their life. There is a time when they have to learn, for lack of a better word, the law. Don't hit that kid on the playground and take his stuff. And 40 years later, he is this saintly individual. But it all started with somebody telling him, don't be a jerk.
no, that's very true. Well, yes, yes. I guess that was also part of the point that was, um, which yeah, there is a moment in time where it becomes very relevant um, to have that.
Yeah. And one of
Yeah.
the great messages of the Quran, of the Injil, of the Torah is don't be a jerk. Allah has been saying this to us over and over again for millennia.
Fact. Can't argue with that.
And this gets us to veils. I realized that I didn't write up about veils in the notes, so nor I'm going to have to wing it. I'm sorry.
Oh, please. I'm sure you'll have much
So,
to offer.
Rumi notes that there are infinite veils between us and the divine, and how this is a good thing. Um, Imagine that you are a pale-skinned person who is set on top of a high mountain in the bright sunlight with no atmosphere between the sun and you. What happens to you?
Extra crispy.
Yes,
I know all about that.
more than sunburn, more than just
Yeah.
sunburn. You can die from that. You can get sunburn so bad that it'll kill you. And we used to see that happen every now and again. I grew up in New Mexico, which is the place that I grew up was 8,200 feet above sea level, where my house was.
So high altitude.
High altitude means thin atmosphere, which means the sun is going to come down on you like nobody's business. And so if you are pale skinned, you need a few veils to protect yourself from the sun.
Yeah. RM says, okay, veils are like sunscreen.
Yeah, because to stand before God unveiled is something that humans don't get to do as a rule. It's a light that will burn us. And so the divine, in its infinite wisdom, puts veils in the way so that we don't turn out, as Noor said, extra crispy. And so the veils are a good thing for that. They protect us from an overdose of the divine, as long as we remember that the veils are there. You know how the Tao Te Ching says the Tao can be spoken is not the true Tao? The God that can be seen is not the true God. Same exact thing. The divine reality that can be perceived through um, human eyes is not the true divine reality. The only way to perceive the divine reality is by polishing the heart enough that it reflects the divine reality. That's it. Then you give the divine reality back to the divine reality and it doesn't stick on you. Does that make sense?
I think it is wonderfully said.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, Anissa asks, so would that be the state of baka, which is subsistence in the divine? And the answer is yes. That is the state of the insan al-kamil, the completed human being. Now, some people say that that's the perfect human being, but I think that that is not the best choice of words. Complete is better.
Nancy says, even then, you only see so much of it.
I think so. You can see what you can reflect.
Hmm. My personal sense is this is a condition of being a human being in the realm of living life and being able to experience this phenomenal world. Because the moment that you are entirely immersed in the unveiled real, you're not in the phenomenal world anymore. You're not having an embodied human experience. You're one with the force without, you know, being separate from it in any way. So there's no perception because there's no separateness. Perception in the sense of smell, sight, taste, touch, all of that as a separate, unique entity. And so veils make this opportunity to perceive diversity and unity possible. It makes that possible. The veils make that possible. But as Mushtaq said, the challenge is remembering that they are veils, that they are present, and that what is perceived is not the rawness of the real.
Yeah. And you know the story about Moses and the madman, right? Just
Mm.
in case somebody doesn't know that story, I'm going to tell that story because I like it. So Moses is walking along the river and he sees this guy up in front of him, and the guy is jumping in the air and waving his arms, and then he falls down and he rolls around on the ground and doing somersaults, and then he jumps up again. And Moses comes up to him and says, "What are you doing?" And the crazy man says, "I'm praying." And Moses says, "That's not how to pray." And he teaches the crazy man how to pray. You bow here, you get down on your knees here, you do all of the things. And the crazy man thanks Moses from the bottom of his heart for teaching him the right way to pray. And Moses goes off. And he comes to the point where he has to cross the river, and there's no boat. So Moses just, goes, Evala, and starts walking across the river, walking on the water. And he hears somebody shouting behind him, and he looks back, and the crazy man is also running across the river on the top of the water. He comes up to Moses and said, "Oh, great prophet, I'm not a smart man, and I forgot everything you told me about prayer." And they're both standing there on the water. Moses looks at him and says, "Just do as you were doing," and walks off. So sometimes we have to understand that just do as you were doing is the best way to deal with something that is outside of the reality tunnel that you have decided is true.
I had not heard that story before, but it's truly wonderful.
It's one of my personal faves because I mean, I wouldn't say that I have ever been the pedantic type that has explained people how to do things, but there's been one or two times where I've met crazy people running across the water after me. It's like, okay.
I have never heard that story either, but it's poignant to me because it's also indicating that if the form is different, the essence can still be the same.
Exactly right. And occasionally, crazy people have incredible wisdom that they can share. Another story. I used to work in psychiatric wards. It's how I put myself through college and grad school. And I was in the day room one day, and this old lady comes barreling through, just like chugging as fast as she can. And I look at her, her name was Rosie, and I said, "Rosie, where are you going?" And she stops and she looks at me and says, "Honey, I'm going to God, but it's been a long, hard journey." And she goes running off, and I'm sitting there with my jaw hanging open.
RM says, thank you for that, Mushtaq. RM says, were veils removed during, oh, okay, so this is kind of a
Yeah, during the
theology
Mi'raj.
question. Yes. Were veils removed during the ascension, the Mi'raj of the Prophet Muhammad? And Prophet compared Salah to that experience, the practice of
Yeah.
ritual prayer to that experience.
And I have to allow us, I wasn't there, so this is my best guess as opposed to a definitive answer. But I suspect so, that I suspect that um, he was fortified by the divine presence so that he could come before the divine presence. And you remember that at one point during the journey to the throne, to the Arsh, Gabriel said to him, "I have to stop here. If I go any further, I'm going to get burned up. So you got to go the rest of the way yourself." So that's kind of indicative that veils were removed.
Um,
Yes,
I
Ian.
seem to have a vague a recollection that there's something similar in the story of Moses receiving the Ten Commandments. That God said to him, "You can't see me in all my glory."
I vaguely
Yeah,
remember
there,
something about that too.
there is, yeah, and this from the Quran, I think it is. Allah demonstrates to Moses exactly why that is by unveiling himself to a mountain, and the mountain is wiped out. So, yeah, it's like you have to be careful. You know how people used to get killed? They would walk in front of radar dishes and they
What?
would get crisped. Yeah. Radar dishes are microwave.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Supposedly, this may be apocryphal, but that's how somebody figured out that you could use microwaves to cook things because he was on duty at night over and over again, and he would set his coffee in front of the microwave to, or the radar dish to warm it up.
Jeez.
I don't know that this is
I
true, but
don't
it's a
know.
great story.
Yeah. Better coffee than people.
Better coffee than people, but a few people have been fried that way, and more than one bird. So you don't want to.
That's like the veil. You just need a little bit of microwaves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the thing that Rumi points out over and over again with his God appears in 100 colors is
Mm.
that no moment is like another. That every moment is a unique revelation
Yeah.
of the divine unity,
Yeah.
and no two revelations are the same.
I think I think that Ibn Arabi has expressed similar sentiments.
Yeah.
They base that off the ayah in the Quran that states كل يوم هو في شأن. Every day or every moment, the divine is in a new matter, in a
Mm.
new order.
Yeah.
And yeah, Ibn Arabi talks about that also, that it's a constant experience of self-disclosure. So
Mhm.
even on a personal level, that yeah, what is self-disclosure on a personal level? What is that? Right? Which is kind of that question that you asked, Mushtaq, in the beginning, talking about that fire, like what? And to me, when I hear that, that's what I hear. I hear to constantly go to that essence in every moment, burn the veils and leave the essence in every moment so that there's real self-disclosure happening, actual revelation happening, taking place in every moment. Obviously, that's very challenging to do. Um, but as a comparison in the divine realm and how the divine is self-disclosing itself through us, in that
Mhm.
it can look like that, possibly.
I believe so. Yeah, because that is part of polishing the mirror, getting at the essence of capital S self, which is a reflection of the one. And looking at the sun indirectly like that means we're probably not going to get burnt to a crisp, but we'll find out as we go along.
Yeah. For many of us, it's better to have just little pieces burned up at one time.
Mm, get cooked as opposed to
Yeah.
deep fried.
Yeah, that idea of that it's always changing. I've I can say that I've had the tiniest experiences of that during my regular practice on good occasions. by no means all of them. But one of the things I found is that when I've had an experience like that, trying to get back to it is futile. Um,
No, you can only get forward to the next one.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
which I find a little bit frustrating, to be honest. But on the other hand, um, it the fact that these kinds of experiences do seem to appear from time to time with no particular regularity or any reason why they happen on one occasion and not another, it always gives me something to look forward to.
Thanks, Ian.
Yeah. And RM notes that direct sunlight is good for a few minutes, but I have to point out that it's never truly direct sunlight.
Ooh.
It's sunlight filtered through the ionosphere and the atmosphere and clouds and all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
If you were to pop out above all of that, uh, you would not do well in direct sunlight. And it's one of the problems with spacecraft is that the side facing the sun gets really hot. So we are protected from that direct sunlight.
It's almost like in a way we're just not pure enough, like too impure to be close to God.
Yeah, until we throw the ring in the fire and melt it down, that's the case. If you shine light through a pure crystal with no inclusions, the light will tend to go straight through it. But if it has inclusions in it, bits of other crystal, the place where those are get hotter than the crystal itself. So it is incumbent upon us that we remove as many inclusions as possible from ourselves.
It's a lot of metaphors.
A lot of metaphors, maybe even a meta five or two.
Yeah. Um, Thank you so much for that, Nancy, in the chat. She offered us the specific thing that I think it was Ian and Mushtaq you guys were thinking of.
Yeah,
It's
the mountain. Uh, she
actually
says that it is in the Torah, so it probably is. And we know that the Quran talks about stuff in the Torah all the time. So
this specific one is yeah, Moses asks God to show Moses his glory, right? His manifest presence. And um yes, but you cannot see my face, says God, because no one can see me and live. Yeah, this is Exodus 18 through 20, and it's actually a beautiful little
yeah,
segment. Yeah. The Lord answered, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will announce my name, the Lord, so you can hear it. I will show kindness to anyone whom I want to show kindness, and I will show mercy to anyone to whom I want to show mercy. But you cannot see my face, because no one can see me and live. So it's in a way it's a kindness that God chooses not to reveal God's self in full glory because Moses would have been obliterated. Okay, so moving on. Thank you for that, Nancy.
Yeah, we got a bunch of
Welcome.
Yes. RM in regard to the direct sunlight says, thank you for clarification. That makes better sense. Anissa asks, so even if you're in a state of baqa, which is subsistence in the divine, you just experience a higher level of tajalliyat. So to say, in a way, it is a more polished version that reflects the light.
yeah. Yeah, Ibn Arabi describes it as your mirror is so perfectly polished that it just reflects all of God's attributes. All of the names get reflected off of you.
A
And of
full,
course, it's not all at once, all of them. It's whatever names are coming by.
mm, okay. Yes, reflects that light, but not actually the purest form of that light. Yeah, and my view is that there is a reason why we show up as us in that unique, not the essence. Yes, not actually the purest form of that light. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but this is good. Yes. Um, Brian, I saw you unmuted. Do you have a thought or a question? It's not too late, please.
Um, the idea of polishing and like a purification. Yeah, I think that's important. I was I don't know. Actually, I hadn't really fully developed the thought yet. That's why I muted myself back, but I'll circle back before we end.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else have thoughts they want to share? Questions?
Answers.
Yeah, we've had some good answers from folks tonight too.
Well, what Brian just said actually is inspired maybe to talk about that purification process because I do remember either reading something within like the alchemical texts and stuff like that, and they heavily talk about that purification process and the process of illumination and then process of unification. And that purification process, I remember feeling to myself and within myself and thinking also to myself that purification implies some kind of, I don't know who used the word here today, like dirtiness or something like that.
Mm,
Um, and I remember being kind of thrown off by that.
hmm
That, oh, I need to purify, almost like purification of that original sin, which,
Yeah.
I come from a culture where we don't believe in that anyway, but
And even those of us who did, I feel a little bit of a cringe when I hear
yeah,
that. Like,
Yeah.
what?
It's not the same thing, though it has to do like when I was talking about the crystal, I used the term inclusions.
Hmm
Stuff that is in the crystal that absorbs rather than transmits. Um, and a good example of that is a window. So there's a window behind my monitor, and it has some dust on it. That dust obscures the view just a little bit. If I were to go out and wash that window, I would be able to see the trees that are on the other side of the drive easier. So when you talk about dirt, it doesn't mean dirty in the sense of, oh, bad, evil, whatever. It just means it's
Same.
got stuff on it.
right.
And that stuff can distort our perceptions.
Yeah. And it does distort our
Mhm.
perceptions.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we may be trying to purify are those mechanical negative responses or reactions to things from the outside. And by first recognizing and acknowledging them, then we work to understand them and eliminate them, which over time polishes the mirror.
Yeah.
There are many ways to put this, and all of them that you've shared have been on point. Yes.
Yeah. A friend of mine once made a telescope, and he made the mirrors for the telescope. Most telescopes use a mirror,
Mm-hmm.
not unless they're just a tube that you look through, but you can't see much with that. And he made the mirror, which means that he dished it out, and then he very, very carefully polished that mirror until it reflected light as perfectly as it could. And then he could see the stars. So that may be a better metaphor, because there is no original sin in polishing the mirror of your telescope.
That's triggering. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead, Nancy. Yes, please.
one possibility is that, okay, you're trying to polish your mirror, but you may not know what is a problem and what isn't. And so you're trying to correct normal human variation.
You are absolutely correct. It's like once
One,
upon a time we thought that being left-handed was evil.
mhm.
And there are places that still think that. And I
Yeah, and
have,
I was thinking that this might be a topic for another time, but how people who pursue this stuff wholeheartedly do not end up with the same personality. Yeah, they're very different from each other, which is interesting.
It is
yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
And Rumi would have said, yeah, everybody's reflecting the part of the divine unity that they are nearest to.
Mhm.
I
But
think,
nobody reflects the whole.
yeah, I didn't know exactly how to get to that destination, but this is where I was thinking earlier. There is this sense of we're not all trying to become the same creature, the same clone in personality and appearance and all of that. That is not even an option, really. Without You can't achieve polishing the mirror if your goal is to end up a whole bunch of like same robots. That's not how this works. So we know that there is I think I just want to tie it back to the fact that you're right to point this out, Nancy, and I think that's really wonderful to remember, is that uniqueness is part of the deal.
Part of the fun.
It is part of the fun, yes, and I think Rumi would agree with that. Ian.
Talking along those lines, one of the things I found interesting this last week is that the Pope has canonized a kid who died when he was 15 years old, not all
Oh
that
yeah.
ago.
Hmm.
And the interesting part, I mean, I have no opinion about the validity of Catholic saints or the miracles that they're supposed to do. But the interesting thing is that every news broadcast that's talked about it has led off with a picture of the classical way that saints are viewed compared with this kid wearing torn jeans and the like.
Yeah, as opposed to like the old like medieval robes, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
certainly no halos around the heads.
Yep. Yeah, he's very much depicted and intended to be a saint for our times, for the youth. So that is fascinating. right. RM says, Nancy's question inspired me to ask this. How would we know what true essence would be? I always have this confusion around persona. So personae, shall we say, are certain veils as well, as long as I know this is a veil.
Yes, sort of, pretty
I
much.
I think I would overall agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean,
All
again,
personas are veils. I mean, the
point blank,
word
yes.
literally means mask. So,
But we
all
have spoken about how knowing the persona is not the essence is basically the same
there's
as
a
saying,
difference also between the essence and your essence.
yes. Okay. I think it's important to
You could
speak
just
to that.
draw that distinction.
Yeah. Now she's asking the big question. What is the essence and my essence?
The essence is that which cannot be spoken of. So you can say that the divine unity is both transcendent and immanent. The immanent part of the divine reality is the names. It is the manifestation of God in the universe. It is the infinite qualities. But beyond that is the transcendent aspect of the divine reality. And that is the essence. And that we cannot even speak of. It's like we can't talk about what was going on before the Big Bang. Does that make any kind of sense at all? Or am I just blathering again? I have been known to blather.
It strikes me that I have no problem with what you said about transcendental and immanent, but it strikes me that what RM was asking about and my essence. And I'm thinking that the my essence is related to this idea of reflection and polishing.
Mm.
Yes. So you want to experience your essence? It's easy. For a moment, find one aspect of your personality. Observe that aspect of your personality. And then look at what is doing the observing. What is doing the observing is your essence. And that is a microcosm of the divine reality in its imminent place in the universe, which is kind of cool.
And we will continue talking about this as well. I mean, this is a continuous exploration, that particular subject of, what is the essence? What is my essence? And it's also an individual question, too. Osama.
Yeah, I guess many things. Well, a couple of things. One of which is what uh, Nancy brought up as far as when it comes to this polishing or this purification, how does one know what is being polished is actually a thing to be polished or it's not? And I think that's in the discussion that we're talking about here as far as uh Rumi, outer, inner, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
This is where the form kind of comes in place, right? This is maybe, I know within the Sufi context, they use, the traditional way, the teacher comes in a place. This is where the quote unquote the law comes in place as far as to have something to measure against. Now, the problem with that is if the law is fixed because it's quote unquote divine, right? If it's fixed law, then it becomes problematic. Um, but anyhow, if there's something to kind of have as a baseline to measure off of, um, and validate, have this internal process of validation of if it's true or not, as far as something to be purified. And the other thing is about the question of the essence, which reminded me of something that I read last night from the Brothers of Purity. I mean, kind of, right? Ikhwan al-Safa. Um, and because they write about the problem or the difficulty for the seeker, there's this desire, like, how did all this come to play anyway? Um, as far as creation and the essence and all that. And they wrote something that before going to bed, I was just like meditating on, and they said, "Know also that God, exalted be He, knew that such doubts and perplexities would arise for rational people when they ponder how the world came to be, and that it cannot be imagined in this manner because of its difficulty. So He established for them another way, easier and nearer. He impressed He impressed it in their souls as though it were inscribed within them by divine writing, which no rational person can deny if he is just with his reason, for he finds the truth of it attested within himself. And this is through the form of number and its origination from the one before the two." Now it's a little bit philosophical, but just the idea even of numbering, I was meditating on that, like the formation of even the idea of number one, just that coming into existence, right?
Mhm.
Which is kind of maybe, as they were saying, it kind of sits a little closer internally within us than essence creating all of this, creating my essence, all this aspect of creation. Um, and that meditation on the number one and the form that is number one, that is before two, as they put it. Um, that's something, I don't know, I just wanted to throw in the mix here, um, that I thought was helpful for me. That's it.
Thank you, Osama. I feel like we're making gumbo tonight. We're just throwing all kinds of stuff in the pot that is bound to be tasty.
Well, and to throw in another thing, it's like Gurdjieff's ray of creation, but there, instead of one and then two, it's one and then three.
Hmm.
I don't have anything to say beyond that. It's just, I was, with what Osama was saying, I was reminded of that.
It's not irrelevant, you know.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, Gurdjieff said there is one, and the one becomes two, but the two cannot exist as a binary, so the third is created. And
Yeah.
that's why it's one to three.
Mhm.
I
Uh,
don't know if I remember him saying that somewhere.
No, I think you're right. I
Yeah,
remember
could
that
be in
too.
a different lifetime.
yeah, I don't remember reading that, but then I mean, even though I've read a whole lot of the Gurdjieff literature, but there's so much more that I haven't read that
Mm,
I wouldn't doubt it at all.
okay. Um,
What I've always found interesting, though, and I've never figured this out, is it goes from 1 to 3, but from then on it doubles. So it goes from 3 to 6, 6 to 12, and so on.
yeah, that is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it doubles after that, but you have the basic three.
Yeah,
That's
multiples.
what they say.
Yeah, perhaps there's somebody out there who actually understands how all that works.
Yeah, it wouldn't be me.
Or nor me.
Okay. So we have questions that may be difficult to answer this evening, but
Let's give it a try.
yeah. Um First I'll bring in Nancy's question. She's been waiting patiently. Nancy says, I'm hoping people can get closer to the spirit of the thing. Maybe with going forward and slipping back, but not as much. How can you tell when your polishing has become sedimented?
You're doing the same polishing over and over again.
The same perceived issues, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. RM says, okay. So in order to understand my essence, I need to understand my personality traits
No,
and observing its doing. I was trying to think and understand what Mushtaq was saying. The question bothers me. Sorry to put it forth again. I think it would be good to revisit the persona talk. And we've done a couple of them, I believe.
Well, and I think there's a certain sense in which self-observation speaks to that. The idea of I need to understand my personality traits, but that's what self-observation is all about.
Yes, that's true. Self-observation helps with mechanical aspect. I dare say the personality can be, is, maybe is a reflection of the mechanical aspect.
Mushtaq, would it be too much to say that the personas are necessarily mechanical?
Um, yeah, they are necessarily mechanical because they need to operate below the level of the conscious mind. So they're programs. They are clothing that your essence puts on so that it can be perceived in the world or hidden from the world or both
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only reason I was a little bit hesitant on that is because you've talked about, for example, you putting on your teacher persona,
Yeah,
Yes.
which is obviously a conscious act.
it's a conscious act to put it on, but the persona itself is a set of programs.
Hmm.
Yeah, no problem with no problem with that at all.
The persona says, speak like this, move like this,
Hmm.
relate to people in this manner, be pedantic whenever possible.
Yeah, I mean, putting on the persona, activating the persona can be a conscious act. It's like flipping a switch almost, and suddenly you're operating through that lens.
And one of the things that I hear all the time is when somebody, and a couple of people here can attest to this. One of the things that people always say to me is, gee, you're nothing like the way you are on YouTube. And it's a thing. James, you were the last person to say that to me.
I don't remember that I said you were nothing like your YouTube persona.
Yeah, we were up in the Himalayas together, hanging
I
out.
thought that, I thought that was Alka that made that particular
Alka has
observation.
definitely said that, that's for
Yeah,
sure. She
Alka has said
feels
that
pretty
as well.
strongly about that. Yeah.
Oh, you've got me there. Um,
I could be making
it's,
it up, so don't worry about it.
well, that's obviously part of your evil plan, but
Yeah,
I certainly notice it. Uh, it doesn't sort of worry me.
that's good because there's no reason to worry.
Yeah, well, that's why I went all the way to India to meet you face to face.
Yeah. The good
I
news is
mean, already,
that I don't have a serial killer persona.
no, I was already fairly confident that was the case. I just have this thing about checking people out face to face. Um,
The serial killer persona is my purview, so
Yeah,
just
is that.
I mean, and also
um,
I like the background that you guys have, the outer and the inner. Is that
I
kind
mean,
of
I thought of that like after I put it up, I was like, oh, that's what it makes me think
Yeah,
of.
it's the
Yeah.
outer and the inner. I'm on the outer, she's in the inner.
Mhm.
ooh, okay.
Yeah,
That
spooky.
makes sense also with the personas, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad somebody noticed that.
Yeah. I like it.
Yep, I made these two backgrounds just before we started.
Mhm. All right. So how would we like to wrap up this evening, Mushtaq? What do you feel is a
Well,
big takeaway here?
first we go to Brady Bunch mode
Yeah.
so that I can stare at everybody. Who have we not heard from? We have not heard from Cherie,
We
who
have
may or
not.
may not have anything to say.
Okay, she's good. She's
Yeah. And Mert has been very quiet, but I think we got him to mumble one or two
We
things.
did. We have heard from everyone more or less, at least once.
Dang.
Yeah.
So, the takeaway from Rumi, for me, when I first came across the Fihi Mafihi, and I remember it quite well because I found it in the house of a Sufi girl who I was dating at the time.
Hmm.
I think I was like 23.
Ye olden
And
days.
yeah, and I stayed up all night reading it, much to her chagrin. And before that, yeah, I knew the Masnavi, I knew the Divani Shams, I knew the sound of them and the feel of them. When I was in Iran, people would you would go to the khonega and you do dhikr and do all of the things. And then everybody would sit around all night drinking tea and passing around like the Divani Shams and opening it up at random and singing from it,
Hmm.
except for those of us who could not do that. But we would play daf or ney or that sort of thing.
Drum.
And so I really knew the feel of Rumi's poetry, but uh, the Fihi Mafihi gave me Rumi's thought, not wrapped up in beautiful words, but just plain, don't be an idiot. Don't get lost in forms. The form is just an arrow pointing to the essence, that sort of thing. And I've probably read that book at least once a year since then. And 23 was a long time ago. And I still don't understand the book. So the takeaway. What is your takeaway, Nor?
My takeaway is um, it's that the idea that this is about the doing. It's not about the book reading. It's not about the rules, the obligations, all of those, as I said, just like ecstasy, everything has its place. And getting stuck on any of it may cause us to miss the real.
That's a good takeaway. I think we should stop there.
Fair enough. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's wave goodbye to each other and to
Yeah, thank you
everybody.
so much for being here, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us for almost a couple hours. We really appreciate you guys, and hopefully you got something good out of this. And any questions unanswered, you can always send us an email or whatever, or set up, a private session with us. We have those available too, and that may be helpful to you. But in any case, have a wonderful week. Thanks for hanging out.
And
Much love.
remember, if you like this video, you may win a prize.
Yeah. May you win. All right. So I'll wave to each other, wave to everyone watching on the replay. We will be here same time, same place next week. Bye, everybody.
God willing.
God